Thanksgiving. My name is Sarah, and I was 29 years old when I finally stopped asking myself if I was imagining things. I grew up in a family where everyone lived close, too close. Cousins were more like siblings, and privacy was treated like a luxury instead of a right. Every holiday was mandatory, every dinner was loud, and every uncomfortable moment was brushed off with laughter and food. Emily is my cousin on my dad's side. She's 1 year younger than me, and growing up she was always the one people notice first. She's beautiful in a way that feels unfair. Long dark hair, clear skin, effortless confidence. The kind of person who doesn't have to try, because attention just finds her. Even when we were kids, adults would comment on it. She's going to break hearts someday. She should model. Boys will be lining up. Everyone said it like it was a compliment, and maybe that's why no one ever questioned her behavior. The first time it happened, I was 24. I had just started dating a guy named Aaron. He was quiet, thoughtful, and kind in a way that felt rare. We'd been together for about 3 months when I brought him to family dinner. He was nervous, but he wanted to meet everyone. He said it mattered to him to understand where I came from. Dinner was at my aunt's house. Long table, too many chairs, loud conversations overlapping each other. Emily arrived late like she always did. She walked in smiling, hugging everyone, acting like the room had been waiting for her. At first, everything felt normal. We ate, we talked. People argued about politics and work and whose turn it was to host Christmas. Then Aaron got up to refill his drink. Emily got up too. I noticed because when they came back, she didn't return to her seat. She sat next to him. Not casually, not accidentally. She angled her body toward him, legs crossed in his direction, laughing a little louder than necessary. She started asking him questions. Where he worked, what he liked to do, what music he listened to. She touched his arm when she laughed. I told myself I was being sensitive. Emily was friendly with everyone. That's just how she was. But something in my chest tightened anyway. Later that night, Aaron mentioned how nice Emily was, how she seemed really interested in what he did. He said it innocently, like an observation, not a warning. I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. Because that wasn't the last time. Over the next few years, it kept happening. Different men, same pattern. I'd bring someone home, a boyfriend, a date I was excited about, someone I trusted, and Emily would find a way to insert herself. She'd sit too close, laugh too hard, ask questions that felt intimate instead of polite, compliment them in ways that cross lines. You're really attractive. Sarah's lucky. I can't believe she found you. Always with a smile, always in front of everyone, always just subtle enough that calling it out would make me look jealous. When I tried to talk to my mom about it once, she sighed and said, "That's just Emily. She doesn't mean anything by it." When I brought it up to my aunt, she laughed. "Oh, honey, you're reading into it. She flirts with everyone," but she didn't. She only flirted with the men I brought home. The worst part wasn't even Emily. It was the doubt she planted in my head. Every time it happened, I questioned myself. Was I being insecure? Was I imagining it? Was this just normal behavior that I was taking personally? I started bracing myself before family gatherings, preparing for the familiar knot in my stomach, watching instead of enjoying, counting the minutes until we could leave. Then came Daniel. Daniel was different. He wasn't just a boyfriend. He was someone I thought I might build a life with. We'd been together almost a year when I brought him to my cousin's birthday party. I almost didn't invite him. Some part of me already knew. Emily was hosting. Her apartment was packed. Music was loud. Drinks everywhere. Daniel stayed close to me at first. He held my hand. He talked to my friends. He made me feel secure. Then I went to the bathroom. When I came back, Emily was sitting on the couch next to him. Her hand was on his knee. Not resting, not accidental. Placed. I froze in the doorway. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I waited for him to move her hand away. He didn't. Instead, he laughed at something she said. I walked over and stood there awkwardly, waiting for either of them to acknowledge me. Emily looked up first. "Oh, we were just talking about you," she said, smiling sweetly. Daniel shifted, finally pulling away. Later that night, I asked him about it. He looked confused. He said Emily was very forward, that she made him uncomfortable, that he didn't want to make a scene. I believed him, but something had already cracked. After that, I started noticing more. Emily messaging my boyfriends on social media, Emily commenting on their photos, Emily finding excuses to text them directly. When I confronted her once, gently, she laughed. "You're being dramatic. I'm just friendly." The word friendly started to feel like a weapon. The last straw came with Mark. Mark was the one I didn't tell myself stories about, the one who showed me the truth without trying. We had been dating 6 months when we attended a family barbecue. Emily showed up late again, wearing a tight dress and sunglasses she didn't take off for the first hour. She went straight to Mark. I watched from across the yard as she leaned into him, smiling, touching his arm, whispering things I couldn't hear. When I walked over, she didn't move. Instead, she said something that finally made my stomach drop. "So," she said to Mark, "do you always date girls like Sarah, or is this new for you?" He looked uncomfortable. I looked stunned. That night, Mark sat me down and told me something I wasn't ready to hear. He said Emily had been messaging him for weeks, flirting, complimenting, testing boundaries. He showed me the messages, and suddenly, every moment I had doubted myself came rushing back. I wasn't insecure, I wasn't imagining it, and Emily wasn't innocent. She just knew how to hide it in plain sight, and that was only the beginning. After Mark showed me the messages, everything changed. My chest felt heavy, like I was carrying a secret I couldn't speak out loud. The worst part wasn't Emily's behavior itself, it was how everyone else ignored it. My parents, my aunts and uncles, even my friends who had known Emily since we were kids, they shrugged it off. She was just friendly. I was the one who had to keep pretending everything was fine. I decided that Thanksgiving would be the test. If Emily tried anything in front of me, I wouldn't look away this time. I would see it, name it, confront it. I spent days planning, psyching myself up. I wore Mark's favorite sweater. I smiled at my reflection, reminding myself that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't insecure. I had proof now. When we arrived, Emily was already there, standing by the fireplace laughing at a joke I couldn't hear. She looked exactly like she always did. Perfect hair, perfect skin, perfect smile, but this time, I wasn't blinded by it. I saw her clearly. I saw her body angle, the way her hand lingered on my uncle's shoulder before sliding to the wine glass. I noticed the way she scanned the room, like she was hunting for prey, and I knew she would find Mark. It didn't take long. About 10 minutes after we sat down, Emily glided over and plopped herself beside him, just like always. I watched my chest tighten, my fingers clenching the napkin in my lap. She asked about his work, leaned closer than necessary, laughed at jokes I hadn't even made, and touched his arm, not once, but 3 times. I wanted to stand up, scream, drag her away, but I stayed frozen. I wanted to see how far she would go. I needed to see it. Then she smiled at me, that infuriating smile she always wore when she knew exactly what she was doing. "Oh, Sarah, you'll have to forgive me. I'm just so curious about your boyfriend," she said. "Mark, tell me, what's it like being with someone so sweet?" Her eyes flicked to mine for a second, just long enough to make me feel like she was taunting me. She knew I noticed, and she didn't care. Mark looked awkward. I could see the confusion in his eyes, the hesitation. He shifted slightly, trying to move away, but Emily leaned in, and then she said something that made my stomach drop. "You're really something, Mark. Sarah is lucky, but I think I'd like to know you better." Not a joke, not a casual remark, a flirtation, deliberate, right in front of me. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. "Emily," I said, my voice trembling but loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's enough." Everyone turned. My parents, my aunt, my uncles, even strangers at the dinner table looked at us like I'd just thrown a grenade. Emily blinked, startled for half a second, then smirked. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said, sweet as sugar. "I didn't realize you'd be so sensitive." That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Emily had been controlling this narrative for years. She had carefully conditioned everyone to ignore her behavior, to excuse it as charm or friendliness. And now, when I tried to assert myself, she painted me as the problem, the insecure one, the overreacting cousin. I sat down, my hands shaking. Mark reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it reassuringly. "You're not overreacting," he whispered. "She's crossed lines for months, maybe years. I've seen it, and I've had enough too." The rest of the night was a blur. Emily acted like nothing happened, chatting with other guests, laughing, pouring wine, smiling that perfect smile at everyone except me. But I couldn't unsee her behavior. Every word she said to Mark, every glance, every touch replayed in my head. I started to notice patterns I hadn't before. How she chose which men to charm, how she timed her visits, how she manipulated situations so she always appeared innocent. After dinner, Mark and I went for a walk outside to escape the tension. The crisp night air didn't calm me. "Why hasn't anyone done anything?" I asked him. "Why is it always me noticing, always me dealing with it?" He shook his head. "Because she's good at it. Really good. And because people are afraid to confront her." He was right. Emily didn't just flirt. She dominated rooms. She manipulated perceptions. And I had been complicit in silence because, like everyone else, I didn't want to believe someone so charming could be so calculating. That night, Mark and I sat in my car, going through the messages she had sent him. Some were subtle, compliments, questions about his life, but others were bold, direct, testing boundaries, even hinting at secret meetings. He showed me screenshots where she admitted she was trying to get closer and called him too intriguing to resist. I felt sick. This wasn't just attention-seeking behavior. This was intentional. And for years, I had been gaslit into questioning my instincts. I knew I had to act, but the question was how. Confronting her directly had only reinforced her control. Going to my family would just make me look jealous. I couldn't ignore it anymore, but any move I made had to be precise. And that's when I realized, if Emily thought she could continue her pattern with Mark, she hadn't accounted for something she had never seen before. My willingness to fight back. My patience had ended. The next step would be tricky. It had to be slow, careful, and undeniable. Because Emily thrived on ambiguity. She thrived on people thinking she was harmless, charming, just friendly, and I wasn't going to give her that power anymore. That night, I made a plan. I would gather evidence, I would expose her, and I would reclaim control, not just over my relationships, but over the way my family perceived me. I didn't yet know how messy it would get. I didn't yet know how far Emily would go to protect her image, but I knew this. The next time she tried to flirt with someone I cared about, I would be ready, and when that moment came, there would be no excuses, no gentle smiles, no, I'm just friendly. It was the calm before the storm, and the storm was coming. The next family gathering was tense from the moment we walked in. Emily was already there, perfectly poised, laughing with her usual charisma. But this time, I wasn't blinded by it. I saw everything. The way she scanned the room, the way her eyes flicked to Mark, the subtle ways she tried to dominate the conversation. I sat quietly, letting her make the first move. Of course, she didn't hesitate. Within 5 minutes, she sidled up to Mark, laughing at a joke he barely made, leaning close, brushing against his arm. My chest tightened, but I stayed calm. I reminded myself, evidence, witnesses, control. Mark caught my eye across the table, a silent reassurance. We had rehearsed this, our plan to expose her without letting her spin it against us. Mark, I whispered, nodding slightly toward Emily. Play along. He understood immediately. He smiled faintly and replied to her questions with polite, minimal answers. He let her charm fade against the cold wall of normalcy we were building. Emily tilted her head, confused for just a moment. She wasn't used to resistance. I waited for the right moment. It came after dessert, when everyone had gathered in the living room. Emily, sensing a lull, made her move. She leaned toward Mark, whispering something that should have been invisible, but Mark didn't shy away. Instead, he smiled sweetly and said, loud enough for me and a few nearby relatives to hear. I actually already told Sarah about this, Emily, and I think she deserves to know exactly what you said to me. The room went silent. Every head turned. Emily's face froze, the perfect mask cracking for the first time. She opened her mouth, then closed it. My heart pounded. I could see her calculating her next move, and I knew she hadn't planned for this. I stood up, my voice steady but firm. Emily, I said, it's time to stop pretending. We've seen the messages. We've seen how you treat people, the way you flirt, manipulate, and gaslight. And we're done pretending it's harmless. Gasps echoed through the room. My parents' faces were pale. Aunts and uncles whispered. And Emily just stared, her green eyes wide, scanning for allies, but finding none. You've spent years making everyone question my reactions, my instincts, my relationships. I continued. But we have proof now. No one can ignore it anymore. Emily's hands trembled slightly, a rare crack in her unshakable composure. She opened her mouth, clearly trying to charm or explain it away, but this time, no one laughed. No one excused her. Mark held up his phone, showing screenshots of messages, flirtatious, inappropriate, and manipulative. Some were bold, direct, almost impossible to misinterpret. Every person in the room could see. Every message told the same story. Emily's behavior had been intentional, repeated, and carefully controlled. The shift in the room was immediate. My relatives, who had previously shrugged, whispered, and ignored her antics, now looked at her differently. Her carefully curated image began to crumble. I was just... Emily stammered, trying to salvage some dignity. But the words fell flat. The laughter, the whispers, the gasps. They drowned her excuses. I felt a mix of relief and anger. Years of frustration, of being labeled too sensitive or overreacting, were finally validated. I finally had a voice, and for the first time, Emily couldn't silence it. After a long, tense pause, my mother spoke up. Sarah, you're right. This behavior isn't okay. Her voice was quiet but firm. Emily, this has to stop. Emily's face paled. She had been caught. For once, she wasn't the charming golden child. She wasn't untouchable. She had been exposed, and everyone could see it. Mark reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it reassuringly. I smiled faintly, my chest finally loosening. We had done it, together. The rest of the evening was subdued. Emily avoided Mark and me, retreating to the corner of the room. She spoke less, smiled less, and no longer commanded attention. For the first time, she felt the consequences of her actions. Driving home later, Mark and I sat in silence, both of us processing the chaos and relief. You handled that perfectly, he said finally. I don't think she expected you to fight back like that. I've spent years letting her control the narrative, I said. I'm not doing that anymore. Not with him, not with anyone. We both knew Emily wasn't gone. Not really. She was still in our lives, still part of the family. But for the first time, I felt empowered. I had boundaries. I had allies, and I had proof that I wasn't imagining what she had done. The next day, my phone buzzed with messages from relatives quietly thanking me for speaking up. Some admitted they had noticed her behavior but didn't want to confront it. Others asked for advice on how to deal with manipulative family members. I realized something powerful. By standing up, I had not only reclaimed my voice, but I had given permission for others to do the same. Emily didn't contact me for weeks. She had lost control, and she knew it. Eventually, she reached out, with an apology that sounded rehearsed and shallow. I didn't respond. Mark and I grew closer, our bond strengthened by the shared battle. I finally felt safe, seen, and validated. And even though Emily was still part of the family gatherings, she no longer dominated them. She no longer dictated how people perceived me or my relationships. It wasn't perfect. Some relatives still whispered, some still hesitated. But I had taken the first, hardest step, and it changed everything. For years I had been silent, unsure, labeled insecure, but now, after all the manipulation, all the gaslighting, all the quiet torment, I had found my strength. I had spoken, I had exposed, and I had won, not just for me, but for everyone who had been too afraid to speak. And the golden child, she was just human after all. The week after Thanksgiving, the tension in my family home was palpable. Every time I walked past Vanessa, there was this thin layer of frost between us, like the warmth I used to feel with my cousin had been replaced by caution, suspicion, and anger I didn't want to feel toward family. I kept replaying that night over and over in my head, wondering if I had handled it too publicly, or if I had even handled it at all. Part of me wanted to text Marcus, apologize for embarrassing him, but I knew he didn't need that. He'd been nothing but kind and patient the entire night. What I wanted was to find a way to protect myself from Vanessa without turning the rest of the family against me. The following weekend, I decided to avoid family events for a bit. I told my mom I needed space, citing work stress and life obligations. She accepted it, but I could feel her disappointment. She never liked it when I skipped family gatherings, and I knew she still didn't quite understand why I couldn't just laugh it off. But I didn't care. I had boundaries now, boundaries that Vanessa clearly didn't respect. A few weeks later, I ran into Marcus at a cafe downtown. Seeing him again felt like a relief, like the storm had passed but left its mark. He smiled when he saw me, a little nervous, a little hesitant, but still warm. "Hey Claire," he said. I wanted to check in. I've been thinking about Thanksgiving." I laughed softly, a nervous tinge in my voice. "Yeah, that was something, wasn't it?" He nodded, running a hand through his hair. "I just wanted you to know I don't hold any of it against you. And honestly, I've been thinking. I don't want to stop seeing you just because you're cousins. Well, you know." I felt my chest loosen. Relief, gratitude, and something else. Validation. Marcus had been patient, respectful, and had shown me the contrast between what real intimacy looked like and what Vanessa had tried to hijack. That day, we talked for hours about everything, our favorite books, silly childhood stories, and even the absurdity of my family dynamics. For the first time since Thanksgiving, I felt normal, like I could breathe again. Then came the holiday season, and with it, the inevitable family gatherings. Vanessa tried, subtly, to regain her position. She wore the same kind of flattering dresses, laughed a little too loudly, leaned a little too close to other guys I brought home, but I was different now. I had my eyes wide open. I caught her every move, documented it mentally, and kept my own interactions with anyone she tried to charm as clear and direct as possible. I realized that Vanessa wasn't just trying to flirt, she was trying to control attention, to manipulate how others saw me and my relationships. And once I recognized that, her power over me started to crumble. At one gathering, I noticed her smirking at me, clearly expecting me to react. But instead I smiled politely, excused myself, and went to talk to my cousin Kyle. Vanessa's smirk faltered when she realized I wasn't falling for her game. That was the first time I felt a sense of control, like I had reclaimed my space without causing drama or letting my emotions rule me. The final turning point came when I confided in my mother. I showed her the subtle but unmistakable patterns of Vanessa's behavior, not just the flirting, but the way she tried to undermine me, the way she positioned herself as the more desirable cousin in the eyes of family and friends. My mother listened quietly, perhaps for the first time really hearing me without judgment. She didn't defend Vanessa, she just nodded, a quiet acknowledgement that maybe I had been right all along. That moment gave me more validation than I'd felt in years. Months later, I realized something else. Vanessa's need to control, to flirt, to steal attention, wasn't about me. It was about her own insecurities and her obsessive desire to be adored. That didn't excuse her behavior, but it helped me detach emotionally. I wasn't responsible for her choices or for how she tried to manipulate the family narrative. I was responsible only for myself, my boundaries, and my relationships. By the following summer, things had settled into a more tolerable pattern. I could bring my partners to family gatherings without the fear of immediate interference. Vanessa continued her performances, sure, but I had learned to navigate them. I learned how to assert myself, how to protect my space, and how to spot manipulative behavior before it spiraled into chaos. Reflecting on all of this, I realized how much growth came from a single, chaotic Thanksgiving night. I had confronted uncomfortable truths, faced family dynamics that were toxic, and emerged stronger, more confident, and more aware. I had learned that no matter how much someone tried to make me feel small, insecure, or inadequate, I could hold my ground. That Thanksgiving had been the trigger for a long-needed awakening. And Marcus? We're still together, now navigating life with mutual respect and understanding. That initial test of patience and character didn't break us, it strengthened the bond. I sometimes wonder what Vanessa thinks when she sees us together, happy and secure, unaffected by her schemes. I hope she realizes someday that power gained through manipulation is fleeting, while genuine connections last. Most importantly, I realized that family dynamics, especially when laced with envy, control, and competition, don't have to define my life. I can choose my boundaries, my relationships, and my response to toxicity. I can be confident in myself, even in spaces where manipulation once thrived. And that, in the end, is the most empowering revenge of all. Thanksgiving will never feel the same again, but that's okay. Because I don't need to compete for anyone's attention anymore. I only need to honor my own worth, and for the first time in my life, that feels enough.